Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
Good morning and welcome to the challenge. As always, first and foremost, we'd like to thank God for this opportunity and thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. We here at the challenge like to bring to you solutions to problems. We like to talk about the issues, but we'd like to take it a step further and talk to you more about the solutions to those problems and how do you deal with those issues. Obviously, they're few and far in between that folks can embrace and actually take to heart and use, it seems. But nonetheless, they are options and they are hopefully thought-provoking kinds of solutions that can help in alleviating and help in solving, the problems that exist out there. One of the things that we've noticed here on the challenge is that the message from us isn't necessarily getting to us. And so we are here because this grassroots network means so very much to the community. And we have another person who has a regular periodical that she publishes with us today, who also offers a unique perspective that is from a person within the community to those of us who live in the community. That person this morning is none other than Anne Marie Adams. Dr. Adams is a publisher of, or is the publisher of the Hartford Guardian. She's also writes for some well-known other periodicals as well. But she's consented to come here this morning and talk to us about journalism and the message that's coming to us and what all of that kind of stuff means. Good morning, Dr. Adams.
Good morning, Russell.
Thank you so much for coming by. I know you have an extensive background in the field of journalism, and you're quite the historian also. So I wanted our viewers to know, if you will, from your perspective, why the message about us should come from people who are with us in the community and not necessarily from those who are outside of the community giving us the message. Why is it so important for it to come from someone who's in the community?
Well, I think the answer is already in your question, which is why I started the Hartford Guardian. I wanted the message to come from the people, by the people, meaning the story that we're writing about comes from the bottom up. So when I interview someone in the neighborhood, it's someone who's telling me their story and I'm writing their story. And it's important that that message come from people in the community because that person has the lived experience and it aids in telling the story. However, that person would need a skill set to shape and tell that story. So the Hartford Guardian does civic journalism. Our motto is building communities through civic journalism. Civic meaning engaging the public. In fact, our nonprofit publication is the oldest one in this area. We're celebrating 12 years this year. And
congratulations.
Yes, great, thank you. And we started out by having our summer journalism workshop in 2005, 2006 at the University of Hartford. In those workshops, we train people in the community, people who live in the community, to tell their story.
That is so exciting to me, and it's actually refreshing, quite frankly, because I kind of feel like even with the platform that we have here, that our message hasn't been told by us. And that's one of the reasons why I think that Access TV now is so valuable and so vital and so critical to us, because I think, unfortunately, the message sometimes gets jaded, and the facts are somehow manipulated with respect to certain events that take place within our community. And when those facts are manipulated, and when that perspective is jaded, to me, it's not my story, it's his story.
Okay. Well, and there's also her story.
Okay.
Okay. So I understand what you mean by the story being jaded and being told by other journalists. And one of the things I preach is diversity in the journalism business and reporters being culturally competent. If the reporters are not culturally competent, the stories would appear jaded and seem far away from you. And like, that's not how I would tell the story. I don't think that story would be shaped well by a reporter who's not familiar with the community itself and the diversity of the community. But there are ways to make your grievance known to the reporters by just sending an email. Well, you didn't include this factoid. You didn't include so-and-so. And I think after a while, when people are sending comments to reporters, it's because they can't see all of the perspectives to include in the story. You only have like maybe 8-inch, if it's newspaper, or 10 or 12-inch, just to write. An 8-inch story, you can't include everything.
Right.
But let's say if you're writing your story and I'm writing my story, I would choose elements of that story I want highlighted.
Okay.
And in choosing these elements, it shows bias sometimes. And sometimes it has to be that way, which is why I encourage the summer journalism workshop for high school students. You train them at an early age to tell their own story with skill, and with excellence. And then you can get a rounded view of it, because journalism is limited.
Okay.
Unless you're writing a book and an article, which is why I became a historian. I wanted to expand the 12-inch story into, 250 pages.
Okay.
And then you can include more elements of someone's story.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so very important. And I think that's why this platform, again, is so important, because we give you not necessarily an abbreviated version, if you will, but a longer version than you would normally get of a specific incident, which actually gives you more about or more information about that incident than you would typically get from obviously the 8-inch story. But my concern as a part of this platform and as a part of the development of this network is, quite frankly, how you pick those elements that are highlighted within those stories, because it would seem to me in some cases that it would be inherently biased depending upon who it was or really what motivated them to cover that particular incident or that particular story. Now, in our community, we see a lot of that. And so, because unfortunately the tragedies seem to keep coming. And I think, there's too much emphasis placed upon it and not enough emphasis placed upon the efforts to alleviate some of those problems and to cure some of those ills and to, quite frankly, address the issues behind the incidents that tend to occur. This segment has come to a very sudden conclusion, but we'll be right back with Anne Marie Adams from the Hartford Guardian, publisher, historian, journalist, par excellence. We'll be right back. On this morning's challenge, we're talking with Dr. Anne Marie Adams, the publisher of the Hartford Guardian, a regular periodical here in the greater Hartford area, someone who has contributed tremendously to obviously the whole fabric of this town and this region. Dr. Adams, we were just talking about how the journalists shape and create, the stories and come up with those elements within the story that they highlight to depict a certain message, or to give a certain message to the readers in that particular area. Mm-hmm. So let's, if you will, expound upon that. Talk to me and tell me, if you will, what is it that would make a periodical, any publication, whatever it is? Now, you talked about civic engagement. You talked about it, reaching the public at a place, or in a place, I guess, where it sort of resonates, I guess, within homes or within the community in a certain way. Is that the aim? Am I on target here, or no? How do you approach the subject matter, and how do you decide which things are written as a journalist, and how do you come up with the things that you believe matter to your readers? Well,
I select stories based on my interest.
Okay.
My interest. And
okay.
Each journalist does that.
Okay.
So, and sometimes
that's
you
honest.
have right.
Very good.
You have to be. I do that now.
Okay.
As a cover reporter working for the Hartford Guardian, sometimes you're assigned a story.
Okay.
And I started covering government, politics and education.
Okay.
So you are required to do a story that covers, that kind of highlight what's going on in education in the schools,
okay.
for example.
I got you.
And what's going on at the board meetings or selectmen meetings.
Okay.
Or city councils.
Okay.
So sometimes stories are mandated. For example, when I cover the education beat, I have to go to board meetings like every month.
Okay.
It's required.
Gotcha.
So I have no choice in the matter. I'd have to sit through, 2 hours listening to politicians.
Wow.
Talking about what they want to do for the school system. And I no longer go to Hartford Board of Education meetings because, after being a journalist in this area for about more than 17 years,
okay.
It's kind of like the same thing they
said
like a decade ago.
Very redundant, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and very few results too, right?
The details, some of the details change, like who is saying what, right. But it's actually the same.
Wow. Wow. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
I guess that's, for me, and I'm obviously a person from the outside looking in. At least that's, my specific take. I'm kind of wondering, um, this is, it seems to me to be this way. Maybe it's not, but it seems to me that people in the journalism business, or in the business of of creating, this stuff that they think that people want to hear, try to pick who the leaders are for any particular community. I had an experience.
Oh.
Yeah, I had an experience, and it's, for me, personally, I was kind of disappointed because I thought they were looking for balance, but I don't know that that's really the way it all panned out. It all came to a point where they were more or less trying to keep from, I thought, from offending the status quo, because it might create some controversy, and it might create some angst with respects to the publication itself.
That right there is true. Now,
Okay.
as a journalist, as a reporter, you have to have balance, and that's the appropriate word rather than objectivity. I don't think people can be objective. I mean, it's thrown out there, but you have to have balance, both sides of the story.
Okay.
And journalists are supposed to have balance and be objective. That's what you aim for.
Sure.
A commentator, an editorial writer, don't have to be.
Okay.
So I think there's a distinction between the reporter and the op-ed writer, which is what I do sometimes.
Okay.
You can take a stand. You can rock the boat sometimes.
Okay.
And when you do, you are actually doing your job as a watchdog. For a journalist's role is to be a watchdog in the community.
Right.
That's it. Right. If people don't understand that, then we have a problem with our society. My job as a reporter is to watch what Governor Malloy does, watch what the mayor does in a city,
right,
or the Board of Ed.
Right.
It's in the job description.
Wow.
My job as an op-ed writer is to take a stand on an issue.
Gotcha.
And argue forcefully.
Okay.
On that issue.
Okay.
Now, freedom of speech is very important to me, and I'm hoping people in the city of Hartford respect that, because what we're seeing is that when people or politicians get offended, they want to do covert things to suppress free speech. Yeah.
Wow.
So I think they lose sight of the fact that a journalist's job is to critique what you're doing. Well, on the campaign trail, you said you were going to do this. What happened?
Right.
It's your job to ask questions, to dig deeper into an issue. So it's interesting that we're talking about this, because the Hartford Guardian has been targeted for taking stands on certain issues. Now, if I've been around, I mean, I've been in the city for almost 30 years. But if I've been around for a while and I want to see change, I'm going to ask you questions about what you're doing to effect change.
Sure.
If the politician is offended by my asking question, we have an issue. We need to take that politician out of office, because apparently that politician forgot why he went into office, to serve the people in this region. Yeah,
that's outstanding. I think that to me, being one of the aims, if you will, of journalists, or one of the, or at least part of the requirements of, the journalist, is a very good and very noble thing to do for a lot of reasons. I mean, I think that, that keeps integrity, and that keeps, honesty in the process, and it makes the stories that we read not just stories that of people about things that we want to hear, but keeps within the story the truth, if you will, about what it is that's actually taking place. And I think that somehow or somewhere along the lines that it goes back to what we were talking about in an earlier segment, is the manipulation of the truth, if you will, to suit.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because politicians
purposes
usually manipulate the truth, right? I'm just saying, not all.
Right.
But if I'm listening to you and I'm seeing obfuscation, and people playing with words,
right,
I'm going to think you're trying to trick me. Now, if you're in office, and I'm expecting, like, on one politician says, opportunity for all. I'm going to expect that if I go to your office, to get opportunity for myself too. If you deny me that opportunity, there are steps we take to make sure you remember what you said on the campaign trail.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm hold them to task.
Yes.
Hartford Guardians, keep holding them to task. We got to take a break right here. We're talking with Dr. Adams, publisher of Hartford Guardians. Boy, I tell you, this is a great segment this morning. We'll be right back.
Okay.
These are the monsters of the road. Ever drive alongside a tractor trailer in the rain? Scary. You're hoping they don't change lanes. Now they see you, now they don't. This monster can crush you in an instant. They may be insured for millions, but you're not thinking of that in a dangerous situation. I'm attorney Jeffrey Dressler. Have an accident, you know what to do, because this is what we do. 24/7, 11/22. Black History Month. We pause to acknowledge and appreciate contributions enriching our cultural and intellectual fabric. Keep it coming.
We are the members of the Saturday Boston Dance Theater, and we celebrate Black history 365 days of the year.
I would have it no other way. Hey, now, ooh. Hi, this is Wormbeast, and you're watching Access TV. Don't touch a dial. Only you. Only you. Hey.
We're excited to be talking with Dr. Anne-Marie Adams this morning about journalism. And it is one of those things that I think that for us in the community, especially the grassroots community, we have to pay more attention to. I think that the message that is coming to us, because it's coming from those who are not necessarily among us, is often jaded, skewed to some extent, because they simply don't have the empathy to appreciate all of the plight in all of the circumstance that is a part of the situation and the incidents that occur within those communities. And so we've asked, Dr. Adams to come this morning, and we hope that she consents to being a regular contributor to the broadcast, and, if you will, even to the network, because what she gives to us, quite frankly, in my opinion, is invaluable, because it needs to be our story. It needs to be our story told from our perspective about us, because, the fact that folks are continuing to do the same things that are so detrimental to the community seems to me is because they've almost become numb and in some cases convinced that that's just the way things are.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case. It just happens to be the case amongst a group or a select group of folks who continue to perpetuate certain types of problems, certain types of behaviors, who really don't understand all it is that we have, all of the value, all of the wonderful things that exist and that are a part of the fabric of our community. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. You're talking about journalists telling their stories and telling other people's stories, but I think the community has to support those writers.
Absolutely.
In fact, the number of journalists in this area that are people of color have declined.
Yeah.
Over the last decade.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I'm the only Black writer
right
in this area, which is, there's someone on
certainly
TV.
female that I know of. Yeah.
There are people on TV, but in terms of writing the story,
right,
I think I'm the only one in this region. So I'm very cognizant of that.
So that's an interesting fact. That's it really is.
Who do you know that's out there right now?
Well, that's why I'm honored to have you here this morning. Really, I really am. I can't thank you enough for coming.
Yeah, it doesn't pay much. That might be the reason why.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then that's part of what we have to, I think, address ourselves as a community and offer more support to even this network.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm sticking with it, because I think that it is vital to our future.
Right.
I think that far too much of our history has been left to those who give it from a perspective and who aren't necessarily amongst us and know how things have evolved and understand things contextually, enough to give it full integrity and honesty when they're talking about it and sharing that information with others.
And that's what I realize in covering stories here. In fact, I'm going to give a talk about Maria Stewart. You probably don't know her, but she's the first Black female, feminist, and she came from Hartford.
Oh, wow.
Not many people know about that.
No.
And that's why I started to write a book about the Black experience in Connecticut and the long civil rights movement.
Wow.
So I think I'm the first to have that book published.
Right.
In the dissertation,
right.
But the book is going to be coming out soon. I have a publisher and everything, but I will be giving a talk about just that in March at Eastern. But people have to realize that unless you support Black writers,
right.
Black journalists, Black producers,
right.
you will not have your story told. It costs money. It's a business.
Yeah.
And we're expecting support in the community to tell our own stories. And write from our perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Just like all the major networks are expecting.
Right.
Right. And I think it's important because also what I'm reading about the last election,
right.
Mayor Pedro Segarra, he got out after only one term. I think that's the first in like 50 years that Democratic
incumbent only lasted one term.
Right. Yeah. And no one questioned that. But I do know why he came out. He had to, because of what he was doing to our publication.
Okay.
And you cannot suppress our voice when we're so few.
Yeah.
Already. The attempt to suppress the Hartford Guardian is one reason why he's out. And we're going to have to continue that discussion in this area about why politicians want to suppress the only Black writer in this region, which is why I'm glad you invited me on the show. I'd like to talk about that. It's very troubling. And we're going to address it with Governor Malloy at some point to find out why there's only one Black writer in this region.
Yeah.
I do cover the White House now, and the election is going on. In fact, the New Hampshire primary is coming up. but I do pay attention to what's going on locally,
Okay.
because all politics is local.
Sure.
But we need support.
Absolutely.
If I'm going to be training cub reporters from the city,
right.
we need support. We need ad dollars, and we need all kinds of sponsorships to continue
Absolutely.
that tradition
Absolutely.
and pass it on to young Black girls and boys
Sure.
who want to tell their own stories as well.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. You know, certainly, you know, this particular show, you know, we're at your disposal. We like having you contribute to the show, to the dialogue here. We like to think that we're talking about solutions to problems. And what you've identified from my perspective is, you know, one of those issues that we must address, because so much of the information that we're looking for to make certain decisions about who we support politically and those people who are working on our behalf comes from those people like yourself, who are writing those stories about whatever results are being obtained or not obtained from those people who claim to have the best interests of those people at heart.
Great.
So
well, I want to say it's Black History Month, and I'm on strike. Okay, about writing about stories, because I've been writing about Hartford for like 17 years.
Right.
So I'm on strike this month.
Okay.
I'm expecting more support and more ad dollars.
Okay.
To start working again in March. I might go on strike in March too. It's Women's History Month, right? We need support for our work. We want equal pay.
Yeah.
And we want ad dollars.
Yeah.
If I leave you with no other message, it's going to be that.
Okay. Okay. Well,
I don't want to do more for less. I need equal pay.
And I think
for my work.
I think you're more than deserving, quite frankly. And having hung in there as long as you've had, your stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word.
Yeah.
You know, I think is remarkable. And you know, certainly we salute you for what you do. You know, and I tell you, I'm so glad that I ran into you this morning and that we were able to do the show.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. And we'll look forward to the next time.
Okay.
Dr. Anne Marie Adams on the challenge this morning, solutions to problems. That's what we talk about here on the challenge. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Remember, be blessed.